In our previous class, we have discussed about transportation in plants, means transfer of food and different minerals, hormones and water in plants. Same type of transportation also takes place in case of animals. As in case of plants, we have two type of conducting tissues, that is xylem and phloem, which help in transportation. In case of animal, transportation is basically carried out by blood. It transport number 1 the oxygen and carbon dioxide. It transport hormones. It transport water. It transport digested food to different parts of the body. Now, as blood do all these function, what exactly blood is? So the answer to this is blood is a connective tissue, or I can say blood is a fluid connective tissue. Fluid means liquid, connective means connecting throughout the body, and tissue as it is made up of group of cells which work together for a similar function. Blood is basically present throughout our body, and it transports food, oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormone, water and digested food from the toe to the hair. Throughout the body, the blood is the connective tissue which connect each and every part of the body. Now, the blood is basically a fluid connective tissue. So, it is made up of different types of cells. The various cells which are together from the blood are red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma and platelets. So, these are basically the four different components of blood. Four components of blood. They are red blood cells, number 1. Number 2 is the white blood cell, plasma and the platelets. Now, giving a brief about the different component. The first component is that of your plasma. Is the first component. Now, a brief about plasma. Plasma is the liquid part. The liquid part of blood is the plasma. It contains water, protein, digested food, waste product, and very important, that are hormones. So basically plasma contain these things. Plasma contain what? It is a liquid part which contain the water, protein, digested food, waste products that is secreted by our body, and the hormones. Now, coming to the second component of the blood, that is the second component of the blood is the red blood cells, or the RBC. The other name for the red blood cells is, the short form is the RBC, RBC, or erythrocytes. This is the other name for the RBC. it is the characteristics of RBC. You can see that they are red in color. Now, how come they are red in color? The redness of this RBC are basically due to the presence of a pigment which is known as hemoglobin. This hemoglobin act as a oxygen carrier, so the function of the RBC would be carrying the oxygen. RBC lives for about 4 months. The longevity or the lifespan is about 4 months for RBC, and they are being synthesized in the bone marrow of the body. Then comes the next component, that is the white blood cells, or the short form is WBC, or the other name for white blood cells is lymphocytes. Lymphocytes. The functions of, as RBC have a function for carrying the oxygen and is being transporting that oxygen, WBC fight against the infection and protect our body from the diseases. They basically manufacture a substance which is known as antibodies that fight against the infection or the foreign, I can say, the bacteria, the virus that enters our body from food or inhalation, etc. They fight against it. So they are, in short, the other name for WBC are, they are the soldiers of our body, which prevent our body from being avoiding from any type of diseases. Clear? The last component is that of your platelets. Platelets are the tiny, they are the tiny fragments, of cell formed in the bone marrow. The function of platelets is to clot the blood during a cut or a wound. Whenever there is a cut or a wound, the clotting of the blood takes place due to the presence of these tiny structures which are known as the platelets. They are basically formed inside the bone marrow. Clear? Now, this was about the various components that are present inside the blood. Now, blood, as you can see, is flowing through a pipe-like structure. So, this pipe-like structure in which the blood flows is known as blood vessel. This pipe-like structure in which the blood flows is known as blood vessels. What are the characteristics of blood vessels? Blood vessels are basically elastic, muscular tissue. Blood vessels are elastic muscular tissue in which the blood flows. There are two, or I can say three different type of blood vessels. They are, number one is the arteries, number two is the veins, and the third one is that of your capillaries, which are the connecting link between the arteries and the veins, which are the connecting link between the arteries and the veins. Now, how are arteries different from veins? Why they are two? From this diagram you can see that the red ones are basically the arteries and the blue ones are the veins. A brief difference between the two: arteries are basically thick wall. The wall of the arteries are very thick, while the wall of the veins are thin in nature. The second difference between the two, that the arteries, they carry blood from heart to different parts of body, and the opposite is that of vein carry blood from body to heart. From this we can say that the as the blood is coming from heart, so arteries would be carrying basically the oxygenated or rich in oxygen blood, and veins, as it carrying the blood from the body, so it would be carrying the deoxygenated or less of oxygenated blood. The third difference between the two, that the arteries and the vein, arteries are basically deep seated. They are not be seen with our superficially, they cannot be seen, where veins are basically superficially placed in our body. They are superficially placed in our body. And the last point of difference between that, as the blood is oxygenated in nature, so the flow of blood is high and with a high pressure and with high pressure. But as they carry basically the deoxygenated blood, so the flow is slow, means the flow of blood is slow and steady. It do in a slow manner, step by step, or I can say very gradual manner. So this is how the arteries and the veins, they differ from each other in carrying the blood. But the one common thing is that both carries the blood, but in two different. One carries the oxygenated blood, another carries the deoxygenated blood. And capillaries, they are basically, they are the connecting. They are thin wall and joins the arteries and the veins. So I have written it downstairs. So means they connect both the arteries and the vein. So these completes your blood vessels through which the blood and its component flow. Clear? Bye.